Let's talk to Greg Swenson now, who is going to talk to us about Trump's prediction, or did he know a bit more than the rest of us, that last night on his Truth Social platform, he said, yes, Keir Starmer's definitely resigning in the morning. Greg, he was right, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, and it's a great question, Russell. Whether he knew from a phone call or a conversation with the prime minister, or he was just guessing it. It wasn't hard to guess, obviously.
Yeah. Can you see the balloons behind me? The
Can I
balloons
say
behind
what?
me, Greg.
Sorry.
The balloons. So we're celebrating here. We
No.
have balloons all over the place. So on the way in this morning, Greg, I was so pleased when I heard that the lectern was being brought out to the front of Downing Street, and therefore that signals Keir Starmer exiting office as Prime Minister. I was so pleased. I went into a party shop and bought balloons. So we're celebrating in Britain. What do you think American politicians and Trump are going to make of the fact that Keir Starmer's resigned?
I think that they're probably thrilled. The problem is, what's coming next could be worse than Keir Starmer. So, I'm not sure the president has thought about that, and I'm sure there'll be a phone call in the near or medium term with Andy Burnham. But I'm just afraid that things that Burnham could even take if this is possible, take the party or the government more to the left or more to the socialist left. So. It's great news. I think he had to go, and I think that was the president's view as well, because their relationship deteriorated in the last 6 or so months. Starting with there's a number of things, but obviously it turned starting with Greenland for sure, but definitely culminating with the denial of the use of Diego Garcia for the attack on Iran. So, the president, I'm sure, is pleased to see Keir Starmer go.
So Donald Trump's attitude towards Starmer started off being kind of warm and friendly and bigging him up, saying, he's a decent guy. That was kind of, if we wind back about a year or so. But increasingly at various meetings, through kind of, the G7 in particular, we've seen that Donald Trump has shunned Keir Starmer, but not just subtly, but very, very blatantly. Trump has made it very, very clear on the world stage to Keir Starmer and the billions of people watching now those clips that he has absolutely no time for Starmer whatsoever. I'm not sure Starmer would have noticed. I think Starmer, as we've seen over the last few weeks and months, has rather a thick skin. But it's fair to say, Greg, isn't it, that Trump had absolutely no time for Keir Starmer whatsoever.
That is absolutely right. He just turned on him, and the president's very transactional, and you're right. He was really nice to Keir Starmer the first year. I think Starmer actually did a decent job of managing that relationship. In fact, in the first year, it's probably the only thing he did well was maintaining that relationship with the U.S. and with the president. But that just soured quickly, and once. Again, the president's transactional. Once he had decided he had no use for Starmer, he was really obvious about it. And the president, look, he's unfiltered. He's not diplomatic at all. That's not his thing. So in this case, it was kind of standard President Trump. Once Starmer made those mistakes, those really great mistakes around Greenland, but especially around the Chagos Islands. Then the president just went full on and criticizing him about, the most obvious was on energy and the, mass migration or the boats. And, I think the president, while not diplomatic, he's absolutely right. And that's, not that the party, the preceding Keir Starmer was very good at those two issues. Obviously, the Conservative Party, was just as bad or worse on immigration, and started this net zero nonsense years ago and really embraced it. So, there's a lot of blame to go around, but clearly, Keir Starmer was making things worse.
And the president very well. How do you think he's going to get on with Burnham? Because Burnham is quite a slick operator. He's actually very charismatic. He's not wooden like Starmer. How do you think those two are going to get on?
Absolutely. I think the president will give him a chance. He'll probably state the obvious, which is you have to fix mass migration and you have to liberate your energy sector. I'm not sure if Burnham can do that as long as Miliband is hanging around. So, but I think that the president will encourage him. But yeah, you're right. Andy Burnham at least has a personality. He might be a socialist, but he's obviously got some charisma, which was so clearly lacking with the prime minister.
It was.
So,
and Greg, do you think free speech will come up as an issue again between
Yeah,
Burnham and Trump, as it has done between Starmer and Trump?
Definitely. I mean, I think again the top two are obvious, but definitely, and free speech, Southport, the rape gangs, school choice, or the fact that labor has crushed private schooling with the tax changes, the hostility to veterans. I think that I think he'll bring up a lot of those things, and if he doesn't, surely the vice president will, or the State Department will, as they have already. So yeah, there's a lot to criticize, and I'm going to go with J.D. Vance here. I mean, these are all values that made both countries great, and we are close cousins, and so it's important for the U.S. It's important for President Trump.
Well, Greg, you in your country are maintaining those values. It seems that here, I'm afraid, in the UK, we have rather lost those. Do you mind if I just play you a couple of clips? I just want to show you some reaction. This is all breaking news, by the way. So we've got reaction, first of all, from those on the left that are, I guess, quite cynically fawning over Starmer now. And of course, all of a sudden now, he's a great statesman. He has a fantastic legacy. He was great for Britain, and he always put the country first, which, of course, we all know is absolute nonsense. Let's hear, first of all, from Lord Hermer, who is a despicable and very sinister individual, in my opinion, because he's the man that you just mentioned where veterans are concerned there, Greg. He's the man that has led the charge to try and prosecute British armed force veterans. Let's just hear what he has to say about his very good friend Keir Starmer resigning.
The Prime Minister's speech there, he was nearly in tears at the end, talking about his kids and about his wife Vic. How are you feeling? How is he?
Well, look, I don't know about you, I thought that was a moment of extraordinary dignity from the Prime Minister, showing his true decency, the kind of qualities that I've seen actually since I've known him for 30 years, but I've seen day in, day out for the last 2 years. So I think he left the podium, walked through the door, showing the same values, exactly the same values he displayed when he walked in 2 years ago.
He talked about accepting with good grace the fact that he'd lost the support of the parliamentary party. Is that how the decision was made in the end for him?
I don't know. Look, I mean, Keir will obviously speak in due course about the kind of past few weeks and few months. I mean, that's not really what today is about. I think what today is about is recognising the decent, dignified Prime Minister we still currently have, recognising what he has achieved over the last 2 years, which is an extraordinary amount, and as a governing party, pulling together, because we've still got 3 years in power. We've got to focus on delivery for the British people.
Greg, hold your thoughts there. A lot of odd nonsense from Hermer, kind of platitudes that I guess he would say that, wouldn't he? Honestly, it's very irritating how a hapless, terribly incompetent Prime Minister, within literally minutes of him resigning, all of a sudden is the most fantastic thing to happen to Britain. Let's also hear from the hapless David Lammy, shall we, in terms of what he thinks about his friend resigning.
Look, I have known Keir Starmer for many, many years, first as a lawyer before he became a politician. I think he is a decent, good, principled man. And today we have seen, in the manner of his resignation, putting the country first. And when you reflect on his legacy, lifting the Labour Party from a devastating defeat, the worst since 1935, rooting out anti-Semitism that had offended so much of the country, getting us back into contention and then in office, again, restoring our image on the world stage, and it's been a privilege to work alongside him, stabilising our economy, those waiting lists falling, small boats crossings coming down, and lifting 500,000 people, young people, out of poverty. That is a tremendous legacy. It's been the honour of my life to work alongside him. Everyone knows I've been very loyal to Keir Starmer, as I have every Labour leader, and I'll be loyal to the next. But today, we reflect on my dear friend's legacy. I think it's immense, and I think many people will be reflecting on that across the country.
David.
an immense legacy, apparently. Well, look, that's not what those on the centre-right think. Let's, for balance now, not that we're governed by Ofcom, let's hear what Richard Tice has had to say about Keir Starmer falling on his sword today.
I think actually both our voters and the country is delighted that Keir Starmer, the most unpopular Prime Minister, has now resigned. We campaigned in the local elections, vote reform to get Starmer out, and that's what's now been achieved. And the big question now is there going to be a contest or is there going to be a coronation? Regardless of that, we're saying that if the country is going to be faced with a completely different set of policies from someone that most people don't know, Andy Burnham, then actually what we need is a general election. The country's broken, everybody knows it. That's why Keir Starmer was so unpopular. The idea that you can have someone that most people have never heard of, no idea what he stands for on the economy, on foreign policy, on defence, on culture, on immigration, on the boats, on waspy women, on pensions and all of that. Let's test those policies in front of the British people at a general election.
A little more scathing from Richard Tice there, Deputy Leader of Reform. That's what the Leader of Reform had to say in the last few seconds.
On May the 7th, in the Midlands, Yorkshire, all the north of England, Reform scored absolutely stunning victories in areas that Labour had dominated for the best part of 100 years. The sheer scale of our victory against Labour made it inevitable that this Prime Minister could not survive. And because of that, Burnham steps forward and wins quite convincingly the Makerfield by-election, ironically with the same message that we had in the local elections. Ours was vote reform, get Starmer out. His was vote Burnham, get Starmer out. Unbelievably, we're about to have our 6th Prime Minister in 7 years. I remember growing up thinking Italy was totally ungovernable as they went through a new Prime Minister every year, and yet that's where we are here. Why is it all happening, and why did we get that big number of votes in the north of England? Well, 10 years ago, on the 23rd of June 2016, we voted Brexit. Much of our political establishment has never accepted the result. And even those that reluctantly did, namely the Conservative Party, refused to implement what voters demanded, namely lower levels of immigration and more freedom for our sole traders and small businesses. They were just two of the benefits we could have taken having got back self-governance. Under Starmer, the Labour Party has moved much closer back to the European Union, and if Mr Burnham wins, they'll go closer still, which means Labour voters and the Labour Party are completely divided on this issue. But the bigger point today is that of a mandate, is that of legitimacy. I've no idea whether there'll be a contest or a coronation, but what I do know is the British public have simply had enough of political parties chopping and changing their leaders at will. We vote for somebody in a general election to be our Prime Minister. We expect them to serve their term. And barring ill health or exceptional circumstances, what is going on here, frankly, is reminiscent of a banana republic that has totally devalued the very process of general elections and democracy. I demand, we at Reform demand, a general election. After all, when the Conservatives were chopping and changing prime ministers, Labour kept saying there should be a general election. On that.
Greg, back to you. Sorry, lots and lots of clips and comment. I mean, you can imagine there's lots and lots of breaking news here in terms of all and sundry from the British political establishment having their say. Do you agree with the premise that if we change a leader of a party and prime minister, even though we don't have a presidential system like you do in the US, but do you agree that there should now be a vote by the country as a general election?
I think there's a lot of merit to that argument. And what we saw with the Tories back in 2022, it went from bad to worse, right? First you had, Liz Truss was elected without a really proper general election, but at least the party voted for her, if I recall correctly. When Rishi was coronated, they didn't even go to the party vote. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of merit to that there should be a general election. This is going to be 3 years of pain. If we think it's bad now, I think it might very well get worse with Andy Burnham. He is probably, arguably more to the left, and I think the president knows that, or at least he's being briefed on it right now. In his first term, remember, it was Theresa May and then Boris. So he might not have agreed with them on everything, but at least they were the party of the right, allegedly, even though they had windfall taxes and price caps and all the other nonsense and mass migration. But I think it's going to be difficult for the president, but I'm with you, Russell. He will reach out to Andy Burnham, or maybe the other way around. He will give Andy Burnham a chance. I think he'll push him on these issues that we've already talked about, but I think he'll at least give him a chance, but I'm not very optimistic.
Look, thank you. I look forward to President Trump's posts on either X or True Social in the coming days. That will be very, very telling, won't it? No doubt he'll be writing to Andy Burnham to tell him exactly how he thinks he should conduct himself as Prime Minister of Great Britain. Greg Swenson, Republicans Overseas, as ever, great friend of the show. Thanks for appearing on UK Live. I'll look forward to seeing you soon, or certainly seeing you on this channel again soon. Jess Kane is still with me. Jess, you've got some breaking news from Andy Burnham.
Andy Burnham has just released a statement on Twitter saying that he is going to put himself forward in the leadership process. And it is quite interesting here. At the last paragraph, he says that there will be a positive process of renewal for our party and our country. It's quite vague there, but...
What does that mean?
Exactly. We don't know exactly what it means. But he does say in the previous paragraph that he wants to see progress on economic growth. Well, I don't know how he's going to do that if he's going to focus on public services and housing and opportunities for the next generation, as he says in his third paragraph there, because he wants to bring them all back into public ownership, which is going to cost billions and billions of pounds.
Do you think one of the problems here is that we've heard this from Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer over the last 2 years? They've banged on about growth a lot, but they think that growth comes from bloating the public sector. My little message to Andy Burnham, because he's probably watching this, because I know he's a big fan of UK Live, is that growth comes from the private sector. It comes from entrepreneurs, it comes from wealth creators, it comes from business owners. So whether they're in the tech space, aerospace, hospitality, financial services, whatever, it comes from those people feeling empowered to take risk, to invest money in businesses, employ people, expand, pay tax. That then contributes to the value of the country in terms of GDP. It doesn't come from just infrastructure projects. It doesn't come from bloating train drivers' salaries. Do you think Burnham now is already, from that statement you just read, in danger of kind of going down a road which has already been well travelled by Rachel Reeves and by Keir Starmer, in that he's already talking about growth, but not really understanding what growth is?
No, quite right. And also, I have heard rumours on Twitter that he is looking at rebuilding the HS2 all the way back to the north to reconnect the north and the south. But that will cost how much billions? 300 billion did they throw at it?
Well, I know
it's a ridiculous
it's
amount
way
of money.
over budget, that's for sure.
It is extortionate.
Is there anything else from the statement you've just seen from Andy Burnham's X account? Anything else that you can see that indicates that he might be lurching to the left? Because from what I can see here, it's just a load of word salad that doesn't actually talk about policy or vision.
Very vague. It's just a load of words, just a load of, I'm going to step in, I'm going to be this great leader. But look, the only thing really that I can see is he wants to do stuff for cost of living, public services, housing and opportunities for the next generation. Political change should never distract from the responsibility to improve people's lives. Is that him basically saying, oh, me going in as Prime Minister should not distract you from your life? Oh, stay sleepy, stay detached. No, guys, need to lock in.
But Jess, are we being unfair on Andy Burnham? Do we think that it's too early for him to be setting out a policy agenda?
He should be setting a policy agenda immediately because he's already said he wants to stand for Prime Minister. The whole reason he stood for that seat in Makerfield is because he wanted to be Prime Minister. He should have been inflating this to a national stage straight away, but he's being vague because he wants to get everyone on side, and then as soon as he's in office, he wants to take us farther to the left, and I can't stand this.
He might be being vague and was in Makerfield simply because he knows that his true colours in terms of what he really feels, particularly when it comes to welfare spending, immigration, crime and borrowing generally, and nationalisation, that those things aren't actually very popular with now what is a majority of people, including the people of Makerfield. So I think we're going to end up here with another situation where we have a Keir Starmer-like Andy Burnham who will say anything he can to get elected, including to the Parliamentary Labour Party, and then actually be a bit of a loose rudder, loose cannon when it comes to how he actually governs. So yes, I'm not sure this is boding well, really. I'd like to have seen Andy Burnham as a statesman, as a potential Prime Minister, come out the blocks today and say, right, this is what I'm going to do on crime and policing. This is what I'm going to do to get rid of this, he will say, this perception of two-tier justice. This is what we're going to do on the economy. This is what we're going to do on jobs. This is what we're going to do on defence. This is what we're going to do on health. This is what we're going to do on the environment. I'm not sure we're going to hear any of that. I think he's just going to make it up as he goes along. This does not put the country in any better place whatsoever versus the catastrophe, in my opinion, that has been Keir Starmer. Oh, well, wow, what a show. That 2 hours whizzed past, didn't it, everybody? Hopefully you like the fact that poor Elena and Scarlett in the background here had to keep up with all the breaking news, which was completely unplanned. So all of the clips and all of the stuff that we've talked about with Greg and with Jess and with Lembit over the last couple of hours, we've literally had to scurry along and find all this stuff on the hoof. So well done, by the way, gallery, people behind the camera there. Yes, well done. I think we've probably done a better job than Sky, the BBC, ITV and Channel 4, because we literally have brought to you just about every bit of breaking news, every comment, every statement being made by politicians across the country on the glorious announcement at about 9:30, 20 to 10 this morning, that is Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, intends and has resigned as both Prime Minister and indeed leader of the Labour Party. Joy. Let's see how long these balloons stay up. They're still there in celebration.